have some resilience and some supports because capitalism is a dynamic, evolving system.
And riffing off or continuing on the luck theme here, one of the more unlucky moments, partially due to his own actions and others, but also unlucky, was when he went to Chile. And, at that time, Chile was ruled by the dictator Augusto Pinochet. Friedman went there to give a series of lectures down there and actually met with Pinochet. Can you talk about that and the controversy and how that sort of put a pall over his Nobel Prize?
Yeah, I think that was one of the more difficult moments for Friedman. And so I should just start by saying he believed there was going to visit a country, going to advise its government, did not mean endorsing that government. And he had gone to many different places, from communist China to Yugoslavia to Chile. And so he saw this as just another thing. If you're an expert in the macroeconomy, particularly you're an expert in inflation, it makes a lot of sense that a country that, I think when he came there, it was 300% annualized inflation, down from 600% under Allende. So this was a pervasive inflationary situation. And it just made sense to him. Okay, I'm being asked to come and give my advice on how to, make this inflation go away, basically. And the other thing is that, so knowing that, I think it's really important, and it's been interpreted as, Friedman went to talk with Pinochet because he thought he was a great guy. And that's really not the case at all. And so then the other piece that is kind of out there is this idea that Friedman's ideas inspired Pinochet or inspired the coup or inspired that. And it really actually happens that the economy is doing so poorly, and it's about a year into Pinochet's regime that they decide, we have such big problems, mainly this 300% inflation, we have to do something new. So a new group of economists come to the fore, and they invite Friedman to sort of explain what they're doing both to the inner structure of the regime and to the broader Chilean public. And so that's the context in which he comes. But what happens next is that Pinochet launches an assassination campaign, and he actually assassinates a former member of the Allende regime on the streets of Washington, D.C. So it's a terrible crime. And then just a few weeks later, the Nobel Prize Committee gives the prize to Friedman. And so the combination of those two coming together, it looks like this sort of thinking people of the world are okay with Pinochet and have sort of endorsed him by endorsing Friedman. And I think that's an overinterpretation, but nonetheless, I can see how that happens given how destructive the Pinochet regime is. So Friedman doesn't see this at all. He really has no idea. This is coming, and he's sort of dogged by controversy in his public appearances from then on. And he can never really understand it because, again, he's like, I've been to these other places. I wasn't endorsing the regime when I went there. And what I think is it's this transitional moment where human rights are kind of emerging as a broad popular concern. And Friedman has very much the economist kind of technocratic orientation, like I'm a problem solver and a fixer and I'll go where I'm needed. And there's another set of ideas coming out, which is a sort of politics of purity, and that any engagement is tantamount to endorsement, and the way to really telegraph your moral standing is to not engage in anything that might be morally odious. And that's just not the perspective that Friedman takes, particularly in a situation where he feels like he has something to say about inflation. So it's a difficult aftermath for him, and I would say over time, he would eventually, he tells Pinochet, if you liberalize the economy, eventually you're going to have to liberalize politically. And that is, in fact, what happens in Chile. And I think by the end of his life, he views that whole trajectory as ultimately ending in a positive place.
That is the great